Well, let's get going then. I want to thank you folks. Everybody knows everybody, but thank you for coming out. This is the first of our speaker series, so thank you for being here. And depending on what happens with the COVID requirements, we will continue to do the speaker series as medical conditions allow. And really, I want to thank Charlie for he's the chair of our speaker series. And he's responsible for the speakers that we're going to be getting and have in the past, for the past year or so. This building we're in here, and perhaps everybody is familiar with it, but I didn't realize it was that old. This goes back to the 1890s, and it's been through several transitions. It started out as a township hall, and it went through some other, I think it was a garage at one time, and now thanks to folks like Christina, David, and Warren, and Sue Moore, and others, we have this building sitting here, and Larry, we have this building sitting here in this condition for our use, so we're going to use it as much as we can for these type of gatherings. We've had, last year, we were able to get something around 30 people in here. So I'd like to introduce Warren. I guess we're going to be talking about the 1967 riots in Detroit. And Warren was there. This is the first person interview, so I will turn it over to our guest speaker. And again, thank you, Warren. Warren Lawrence.
Then I didn't start the riots. I just wanted to see them. Historical evidence. This Hank's a friend of mine who was in the media field on guys by the name who was up in the Grayling area. And he was prisoner of war in France, and he ended up the war in Vladivostok under the Russians. And he had a lot of good things to say about the Germans. He had not anything to say about the Russians. He didn't care for them. Because the Germans, we were reading Germans, but so was the German army. But I said, what's the hardest thing about being a prisoner of war? He said, trying to surrender when everything you got is OD. So, he always said this one, I mean that when I go to Grayling, which I'm going to be at the end of this week, I always go to the PX and pick up a new one just in honor of my friend. And he went to Michigan State media field. And I had a good friend of all. That was me. Also, in thinking of people who Don's gone to his reward, and looking at here, a guy that's gone to his reward, I don't even know if most people in Pittsburgh are even aware of it, was Dick Craig. And Dick Craig was the one that gave us so much of the interior of the garage. His dad was a middle management guy from what gas company, Christina? That gas company.
Vessel? No, Standard.
What?
The dinosaur, right?
Yeah, the dinosaur.
Sinclair.
Yeah. And he did collected stuff and always collected Supreme stuff. And even the stuff that I gave the store, I got from Dick, he gave it to me. That's a lot. Boom, he gave it to me. Here, you can have it. Super. And Dick was a very, very generous guy. Graduated or retired from Glenwood Community College. And when I got this one question, how do you get stuff? And he said, Ken, was Ken, our repair guy.
Evanson?
Yeah, Ken Evanson. He said, I've been looking for this and we're looking for this. And he said, Ken, why don't you come with me into my house and we'll play a yes-no game? Oh, what's that? Come on with me. So I went with him, the three of us went. And his house moved. We're going to cut that one off there. And now he said, I learned this from Michigan State, from the guy up there who was in charge of all their antiques. You walk around and you point, and he'll either there's no argument. And if he says this, all out. If he says no, go to the next one. And that's what we did. The first thing that Ken pointed to was Dick's got a 1925 Dodge. And he said, what about that? He said, no. That's one of my friends. But that Dick was very, very good to us. And then he was reminding me of who he was. So much that. Okay, now about the Detroit Riot. First of all, am I qualified to talk about it? Sure. Who said so? I said, one to zero, 1 to 0 is the vote. In addition to working with education all the time, I also was able to put in over 25 years with the Army and the Guard. I wasn't in the Army, I was in the Guard. I wasn't in the Guard, I was back in the Army. I was an in and out guy. But that was all right, they both did really good. Well. I have nothing but the highest regard for the organization. And that's when in my capacity with the National Guard, is when we went to Detroit, and we did not call them the riots. These guys called them the riots, the press called them riots, the military called them civil disturbances. Riots there were riots in 1943. They were race riots in Detroit. Literally, blacks and whites over job competition more than anything. There was an enlistment riots in the Civil War in New York in 63. Riot, blacks and whites. But this was not a riot. There was a lot of injustice involved with blacks and whites, but it was not a riot. There are generally, in those days, we used to say there were two causes of a civil disturbance or riot, if you want. One is that conditions are so terrible, anything will make it happen. Spark. Boom. The other one that causes civil disturbances is the spark is so tremendous, it just engulfs everything else around. Probably Detroit was almost the two, but certainly it was conditions. And I'm going to start this little talk by going to the end of it. And have some of the results of it, and then that we did not see as, and I'm talking about all the thing I saw was I was a company commander in the National Guard unit in Kalamazoo, and I had enlisted there, left there, came back to there, enlisted there, came back there. So I just saw it through Kalamazoo eyes, not Detroit eyes. Some of you, they had Detroit eyes and saw it a whole bit about there tonight. That's good. Dr. Elsas, the Northwestern, some of you might have had in the history department. I was taking a graduate course on writing history. And there's a small group like graduate course, and he said, hey, I just got the word last week that I can't remember the guy, another PhD at Western, wrote the infinite work on the Battle of the Bulge. And he said, boy, I couldn't wait to get down there and get a copy, because I was in the Battle of the Bulge, he said. And he said, I was a company clerk in an infantry company. Well, a company clerk in an infantry company, his primary weapon would have been a teletype or a typewriter. Because, except, I'm sure the Battle of the Bulge, he laid his hands on anything he could. But anyway, so Dr. Elsas went on, and he said, I read the book. Real quick. And then I went to see the guy that wrote the book. I said, I just read the book. Oh, what did you think of it? He said, well, I was there. He said, I'll tell you what. He said, from a company clerk's eyes, I didn't see it like that at all. He saw it from the eyes of several divisions, but he said, and his point was well taken. Different people see different historical events different ways based on their past experience and maybe even their future. So, when I talk to you about the civil disturbances here, it's my opinion, a lot of it, some of it's fact, but a lot of it's my opinion. You can buy it or trash it. I don't get it. This is the way I saw it as a Kalamazoo guy. And with mostly Kalamazoo people, Detroiters. And and I also, from a company commander, and that's for our signal battalion, and we were unique. There had been a big signal exercise in Wisconsin that the Army put on. And we're an Army area signal battalion, and they wanted us to participate in it. We did, it was a telephone presentation. And we went there, and that was like a week before the civil disturbance. Came back, all our equipment was dirty and stuff, and we washed it up. And we spent there a particular weekend of the July 23rd, that Sunday is when they credit the Detroit Riot started. We were, well, just putting in final touches and cleaning up all our equipment, making sure all our stuff was working, was repaired, that kind of thing you do after an exercise. And we had all along, for several weeks, been hearing how something's going to happen here in Michigan. If not Detroit, Kalamazoo was a suspect. Well, nothing ever happened in Kalamazoo. Yeah, it does. I lost 3 Jeeps. Somebody burned them. They used to run the old Water Street Armory. I don't know if you remember the old Water Street Armory or not, but it was on Water Street. It was an armory. And then we parked some of our vehicles down the end of Water Street towards South Haven that way. And we had just fence around it. And the Sentinel has a lot of vehicles because they're doing communications. And the quarter tons, the Jeeps were up in front. I'll be damned if somebody didn't firebomb 3 of them. Now I took that personal because I was signed out for them. So the state police was constantly telling us what the situation was. And we had no other way of knowing except through the multiple intelligence work of the police department and the state police. They were the ones who told us what the situation was. And the other thing, you call Bill, stay out of work. Hell, they didn't know what for. In fact, I called a few people. We better call this, we maybe get called up. Then I get a call. Oh, everything's okay, everything's quiet. I called the same people. Guess who? Everything's okay. And those people never even knew this was going on. It was going on constantly. The conditions were really, really right for something to happen. We just didn't know what or where. So this Sunday, the 23rd, which is the night before, in Detroit, there was a blind pig was raided. Anybody here know what a blind pig is? There. Now, what is a blind pig, Lloyd?
Illegal bar.
An after-hour bar. And it's something that big cities have, all over big cities. And it was especially important to black people, not because they were big drinkers, but they had no places to go. Where white people in Detroit, they had places that were okie-dokie to go to. So, and these blind pigs were raiding constantly. This is something that goes on in the big cities. But they had to hit it in the night, a hot night like we have now. But it did mean something to the local. Who the hell are the police think they are? This is our bar, our neighborhood. What are they doing there? There were, I think, 3% of the Detroit Police Department were minorities. The rest were all Caucasians, you know. What was the population? About, I think it was closer to 40% minorities of the population at that time. Detroit was a gas county and black city. So there was the rioters saw it as an injustice. To us, personally, they took it personally. And then it started to grow. And when it did, it just kept growing. So Sunday morning, we were up and we were exercising up, and we're an army area, which is a big area, several 100 square miles of signal communication. And the lieutenant in charge of operations came to me and he said, the captain, he said, I can't take out Detroit on our AM radio net, and that's a worldwide net. I said, I was looking in Detroit, or maybe it's a mechanical problem. There usually is a mechanical problem, they notify. I said, I got to call the headquarters anyway, but I'll find out. And I called, and the guy answered the phone who I knew was a lieutenant in the operations area, and I said, hey, first of all, I said, is there something happening with the radio, AM radio? He said, we are in the middle of it, and you know what it is. You get off the telephone, you need the telephone for it. Okay. I said, go first, sergeant. let's have a cup in formation. They did, that's what I'm what were you doing? This is late morning. I said, get that notice that there's something cooking in Detroit that we know what it is, and I think we all do know what it is. Something like what it is. And so I think we're gonna end the drill right now. Go home, make sure you got everybody have backup stuff. You know. Make sure you got all your stuff together, your tape equipment, all that kind of thing. Don't leave your telephone unmanned tonight, because we might be here or something later. Just at that sense and give. Any questions on that? No. Okay. So by 1 o'clock we were out. Everybody was home. And I went home too, and I thought, what's going on? So I turned on the television, and that, what we used to have only about 100 channels on 9,000 channels. And I switched on, and there I'm looking, and there is our battalion leadership in the streets of Detroit. Our battalion workers in the streets of Detroit. All armed as infantry, not as signal people. Normally they would be in bands and working radios and stuff. But they're all armed, and our battalion mostly was party. Everybody's very party. And then our officers in Detroit always wore a different uniform. They wore a khaki uniform. I don't know why they did it. Looked like a big shot, I guess. But they would stand out, really stand out. Oh God, here's so-and-so, there's Captain so-and-so. Oh, this does look good. You can start to see smoke coming up. So I called some TV and I said, I think we're really going to get some stuff. Yeah, we've been watching on TV too. So sure enough, about 9 o'clock, the phone rang. And it was somebody at Lansing calling and said, Captain wants to have your unit on the road tomorrow by $700. And go to the Light Guard Armory. You know where that is? Yeah. Light Guard Armory was our headquarters armory. And you know where the Light Guard Armory is. It was built in Vickers machine gun plant during the war. And so we were there, we were live, with all the advance notice, we were on the road quick. And then, and it was a good thing because we were really needed. So I'll end and switch back now to the end of the conference, and I'll go back to what we actually did. Just going back to the end of it after the blind tape, and misrepresentations, I'll point out what I think is misrepresentation. We had a political conflict between the President of the United States, who was a Democrat, and our Governor, George Romney, who was a Republican. And the President wanted to call federal troops in, the Army. George Romney did not want federal troops in. He wanted to leave it in the Guard's hand. And that's always kind of a conflict. By the Constitution, we don't want soldiers going into people's houses who are American. That's why we got this clause on the Constitution on the very subject. And of course, as part of President Johnson's plan, he wanted to get as much military capacity there as possible. So that's where they work like that. Well, the way that all worked out in the long run was kind of interesting. The president finally got his way of getting some American troops. They got two great divisions. They got the 82nd Airborne and the 101st Airborne. They weren't two better units in the American Army than those two units. And they came in, and General Cracknell, who was a well-known general, with them, and he hadn't been very well versed on anything. And luckily, the division commander for the Michigan National Guard was also a 101st Airborne guy during the war, and knew Cracknell. They knew each other as captains during the war. And Cracknell one of the things he couldn't understand is, why is the Michigan National Guard? They look terrible. I mean, it was dirty and good. Well, they were right in the middle of an infantry exercise, which nobody had bothered to tell Cracknell. And he said, no, they just came right, and we had to put them on the gas and put them on the road. Oh, I didn't know that. Now that explains it. And we're going to be talking about the press a little bit, and I might be just a tad prejudiced with the free press. I didn't read it 20 years there to the civil service. But what Chairman Cracknell had told the press, he said, because he complained about what's with the guards, perfect. And then he went back to the press and said, oh, now that I understand the situation, I see what we were involved in. And the way the free press reported that, General Cracknell said once he took charge of the situation, everything was okay. Oh, had nothing to do with anything. And the guard was working with the police, in support of the police. If you saw 39 guards in there, you'd see at least one cop giving the direction. And that makes such a difference because they knew the radio frequencies, they knew all the places, the dead zones for communication, they knew everything, they knew what the government, the mayor wanted and so on. And then we started getting this press with the free press that we didn't. As some of you know, I got sons who were cops. And they're always talking not too good about the press and whether they're treated by the press. And here we are getting blamed. You know, they had the famous incident of there was an incident of a hotel. I can't remember the name of that hotel. An Indian type name. But anyway, with the guard, there was a couple of murders in it. And the guard was there. The implication was that some way the guard caused it. Hell, we were there. There were no guard in that part of the city. And I asked one of the Detroit police officers, I said, am I going nuts or are we just getting crazy press? And he laughed. He said, you know, the Detroit police are having a field day with us because we hear that kind of talk every day. And now that you guys are here with the guard, they're telling the truth on you. They're leaving us alone. But we know the day that your trips leave, we'll be their prime customer again. Oh, I thought it was funny. And I said, well, what do you feel about it? And he said, you know, I'll tell you, if I will never give a citation to a Michigan National Guardsman if I know it's the guardsman. He said, I thought we had it. We were so outnumbered. And he said, when I looked up and down the road and saw those first convoy headlights coming down the road, I knew we had a chance. And if the guy or girl to the guardsman, I'll never get a citation. It made me feel a lot more honest. But by the time, after 5 days, things were over. There were 43 dead. It was the most costly riot up to that time. I don't know with all the current stuff going on. I'm sure that some of these numbers have been surpassed. I don't know what goes on in California. I never knew when things were quiet in California what the hell was going on. So, there was 1,189 injured. And this is both capacity in the military and civilian. There were 7,200 arrests. There were 2,000 buildings burned out. So it had been the most costly riot the country had ever heard. The Detroit Free Press got the Pulitzer Prize, not for me. And I'll tell you about a little story that involved a Michigan guardsman. County. Guy came in, and I don't want to say who the sergeant is, because not that he was. I did write him up for a decoration that he got. I had the honor of putting it on. But I'm sure that in his history, it's far behind what's going on to do other things. And then, did you hear about Sergeant Jones? They said, oh my God, I couldn't believe it. And the way it was reported in the Free Press was that there was some guard people who were looking for any kind of a flash, and then they fired it. It was quite true. And when they did, some nervous National Guardsmen, I think that's all the were precursor police, they saw a guy light a cigarette and they shot with a 50 caliber round weapon. And I went right through the ceiling and down and killed a little girl. In fact, I think it was the niece of the guy who lit the cigarette. And tragedy, by any means, was a tragedy. But the free press, the whole implication was, oh, the nervous guard, they could shoot. Well, that was the only recourse we had. When we first got there, we had people we put on steakhouse at different places where the police wanted to stop traffic. And they start firing. I know that some of you know Sonny Danville, and it was his brother who was a guardsman, and they came in with a helmet with a bullet hole in it. I said, what's wrong with that? And he wasn't small, but they still called him Little Danville because he was the first sergeant's brother. And where did we find that? It was laying where we last left when the police had dropped him off. It was laying on the ground. We haven't seen him. I said, what happened? And so they went back and they went up, looked at the area, and what happened was he started getting shot at, and he had nothing but he crawled on the ground, crawled next to the curb, crawled up next to the building, and then the police were able to get a car up on the sidewalk, protect him so they could get him in the back door and get him out of there. None of that got reported to that effect in any way at all. And, this sergeant, this one place where this little girl was killed, there were 2 police officers who were wounded, who were out in the street laying there. Nobody could get to them because they were under fire. And finally, this sergeant, National Guard guy from Kalamazoo, who was a fireman, he crawled out there, got hold of one of them was unconscious, one of them was just unconscious, dragged him back in behind the building where the fire department had their bed. And then he crawled out again, and he said, and he put his helmet on the other guy, dragged the second guy back. And then he said, he was so cool. He said that he pretended he was the unconscious guy. And the conscious guy didn't even realize where he was. Jim, and he said, oh, I'm doing okay. You gotta get better, you gotta get out of here. The fire department said, no. Yeah, okay. And he said, we done, he took over the whole situation. And that the one fellow didn't make it, but the other one did. I don't think he stayed in the department, but he made it. And so at a later date, I had the opportunity to play him off coach for Wood, which he deserved and got. But did any of that make it free for us? No. Because that error thing was, oh, shoot, at a flash, some guy lighting a cigarette. Well, probably it was the National Guard. And when we first got there, they said, well, we're under these lights, street lights, and you can't see where things are coming from. And you have the Detroit top. Can you shut these lights off? He laughed and he said, no. He said, this bank of lights right here where we're standing, that goes for blocks and blocks. And you shut that off, you shut off 10% of the city. You can't just shut them off. What do? Oh, that's the way you gotta do it, because that's it. It'll affect the rest of the light, and it'll keep you in the dark. Okay. And how that got reported in the Free Press. And that said, so who shoots out streetlights? Just a 12-year-old with a brand new 22, or just the National Guard with his rifle. Oh, that makes sense. Of course, everything you make it look like $1 million. Excuse me, I've got enough prisoner war. So that was and I'm sure that there were a lot of things that were reported in the press rooms. I already happened, but there are others that should thought, God, where did they come up with that phrase? And later on, when Jackie and I owned the paper here, a little caveat, I was on the Michigan Press Association, which kind of was all papers. And they have a pretty good organization. People on that committee, half are dailies and half are weeklies. So that you sit down, you got just as much voting power as the free press, and you're convicted. And that I would always look for, I think, Shine was the guy who was the publisher of the free press at the time, Neil Shine.
Neil Shine.
And I would look for where he was sitting, and I'd go sit next to him. Just because he was such a brilliant guy. He knew so much about publication, there's no way I could ever top him. And I never talked about my Detroit experience. I always have a list of questions about newspaper questions, you know. And I saw my opportunities, and I'm glad I never said anything against the free press. And now I read the free press every day. So even people like me read it. Okay, like these lines. So the Detroit Riot, I already told you, we didn't call them riots, we called them civil disturbances. Another name they were went to was the Detroit Riot, which they were not. In fact, a lot of our support came from the people who live in the area, the black people we had guys who lived in bed. Who wasn't with the police. People coming down. He gets hungry. Oh, here. And some sandwiches with me. I thought it'd been out there a long time. Because that was one of the biggest problems we had. We lost control. People, because we hadn't even parked the vehicle and they were running up. They need 20 guys to go with this guy. They need 10 guys to go. Grab the ammunition from over there. And they just disappeared. And we would never, ever allow that to happen again. And we had a kind of a frightful time when there were people who were thinking, you never want to lose control. But yet that happened. That's one of the things we learned in that. Here's my other end story. Some of the injustices that we were hiding on, I thought Detroit was a pretty good place. I've been there and that was what was so hard. Because I've been to some other places with the Army, it was scary. But this place was scary, because this is where I was fired. Nobody shot at me then. They might want to, but they didn't do it. So. But there was going on in Detroit all kinds of sub-organizations. There are a lot of injustices, this is my opinion, but there were a lot of injustices given to the black community, the minority community, by history of Detroit. Picking somebody else, I'm just saying. There had been a time where Detroit was you couldn't get a loan for your black. And they were just out of the house business. So they couldn't get a house. I mean, they were redlining. Oh, okay. I'm sorry, you just didn't make it. And also there was a large KKK out in Detroit. I didn't know that. There was also Malcolm X, who was very busy there. His father was killed in a streetcar accident in 1931, and that kind of affected him. I don't know if he blamed white people for that or not, but he was on the list. There are just a lot of splendid groups who had different separate interests, not necessarily working all together, which was probably good. They call it neighborhood locking, where you can't go in and minorities allowed in that neighborhood. What do you know minorities allowed? That's the thing. You don't live here. You don't understand. Well, that was true. But they just had another way of living on. That didn't mean everybody liked it, but it's just the way it was. And it led into that big civil disturbance. Police, they surveyed the New York survey, the biggest ending. Dislike that part of the minority was the way they were treated by the police. And unfairly, there were so few black cops. And the others, they were just, it had no ability to make things run right as far as the community went. And that was the number one area where black people were upset. secondly was the city justice of all their troops. Detroit lost 150,000 jobs to the surrounding community. That's one heck of a lot of jobs. And then who they got to fill them? The minorities who won't be hired. Luckily, GM and Ford hired minorities. And they stayed there, but other car companies didn't exist. How many remember they Packard automobile? They had Hudson. You step down and do Hudson. You had to really step down because the company was gone. Studebaker, I always think of Studebaker as being built in Indiana. But they were built from Detroit and all of them jobs went. They were minorities chance of getting jobs. That's what I didn't know. Not that I had to know, but it was there were, in Detroit at that time, twice as many eligible men to work who were black and white. I didn't know that. The schools were totally dysfunctional. And then someone might say the same thing in Detroit today. They didn't get the money to get the schools back from the city mission. And they were paying a price as far as the teachers. There were certain stores that were just, and we'll talk about that later, like on the list of minorities in Detroit. But the way that they were treated by the stores themselves as store bought. Okay, those are the overall ones that I wanted to go over with you. So let's look here. My remote is kind of dysfunctional, so I'll have to go like this, but that's okay. I'll make up for my verbiage. We use a lot of armored vehicles. These are lessons learned. And the reason we use armored vehicles, those are what's called an APC, Armored Personnel Carrier, is they were a great psychological advantage. You were in an armored personnel carrier, you're going to get away. Found out it wasn't politically the smartest idea. A lot of lessons learned by the military in this process, and I had the good fortune to be part of some of those lessons. That's Central High School on Linwood Avenue, I think. I'm not a Detroiter. You, anybody here Detroit? Has anybody close to that come? Okay. And it's a beautiful building. It must have been built in the 20s, I'm guessing. All the every terrazzo on the inside, and they put several units there in there that our second battalion being one of them. And it was to go in there and to have this great place and realize that now this is your home for a few days. But we set up like we would normally. We would do wartime, peacetime, wherever. We set our mess was outside in the yard, just like we would do in kerosene. They set the mess all up, set the immersion burners up, and then all of a sudden, ping, 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 oh! And then you're trying to eat, and you're under a truck. And that particular day, the snipers were across the street firing from the second floor. And I like it today because sometimes you'll see what's on the analysis of some of these activities going on. Well, way back in the 60s when they had this thing in Detroit, a lot of the guards said they were shot at, like, They weren't shot at? What was going through the window? We put tables up in the window for protection. And the snipers will wait. And there, of course, the tank is really, and it particularly got the machine gun on it, and unfortunately, some of them got used. Unfortunately, by Warren's definition. You can't tell it, but there are tables up on those that we were able to fit right up there in the top, and you can't tell the bullet holes in the bottom of the windows there. But it did keep it low even on the inside of that view. One of the few, that's an earlier helicopter, a real workhorse. We use them primarily for vision and for they have these great lights. They could go up on, and they could see what's on the rooftop. Who's that over there? What are they doing? So somebody checked it out. So now that's a historical, I have that one right here in the village. Okay. Casey Jones used to drive one of these.
You wanna start the letter campaign on that now or next week?
Yeah. And they, I have 3 grandsons who are both rotary wing and fixed wing pilots, and for Army type. This is a lieutenant. He was a great guy, still is, I'm sure, somewhere. He was, at the time, he was a salesman for IBM, top salesman. And then his dad was a doctor of the UP. It's kind of interesting caveat. And, can't remember the town, one of the bigger towns in UP. Not good. And he was a sports enthusiast. He wasn't a big guy, just the energy. And he'd say, come over to my house, the Lions are playing in Chicago. We're going to have a little party. We had a little party. The party was watching him. He was just all over the place. I said, thank God, Jim, don't you ever have that? He said, I have to watch myself in sports stuff. He said, last year I was up at my dad's place, and my dad got a nice house. And he said, I was watching this game, and the Lions and Bears. And the Lions scored, and I said, "Yay!" I went right straight up, put my fist right through the ceiling. Oh, God, that's not my dad's beautiful house. And I thought, that killed me. He was cracking up. He said, I came back a month later, and I was all set to repair. No. He was like that. I'd like to show that. My son did that. He was a good guy. He could get along. One of those guys who just get along anywhere. That's at the powerhouse. And we talk about doing things for charity. I was so impressed. I was impressed with the Army, the Salvation Army, when I was in the Army, when I was in Korea. Well, they gave. They say, Army's here, we're got coffee donuts. They want to give them to us. We'd all go. And there was a little cup right here. And there were other unnatural organizations who would come and say, hey, they want something to accept it down. And he knew who they were. You probably wouldn't know who they were. They had coffee donuts. And coffee donuts. And there's a coffee. Put money in. And I said, really appreciate what we're doing for them. Not the Salvation Army. Salvation Army came there with vans loaded with underwear, t-shirts, towels. They had heard that these guys had just come out of maneuvers, and they would not pay. So the company, everybody in the company was concerned about this. They said, hey, they're doing so much for us, we gotta give it back. And so they, on their own, somebody started collecting money for the Salvation Army. And so called the honcho, Major somebody, and he came and I said, listen, just want you to help. We're here, we're not here. And they said, if in the holiday you still see us ringing the bell, you still want to help. That's the time. Moving. Needless to say, in the holiday, we get that bucket around in the company. A lot of them. But they get a check from me every month because what they did right there, and not just for the military, but for the people. God, they're living on that now. That's the powerhouse for the school you were looking at, and we used to have this quarter tons of things going on. One of the things that was already mentioned was the expenditure of ammunition. As we look back and analyze it, I mean Lansing, not Warren, we fired way too much ammunition. Because that's what we're trained. They take leadership in that. and take the high ground. Well, that's not necessarily what you want to do in your own country. And when this is called Detroit 1, well, there was no Detroit 2. Well, yes, there was a Detroit 2. You just never heard about it. Detroit 2, we'll jump way ahead. About a year later, Dr. King was assassinated. Some of you probably remember when that happened. And when he was assassinated, that's where the event made the difference. Everything exploded throughout the nation. Boom! And one big city was quiet. Detroit, Michigan was quiet. And the government expended 2 rounds, 2 bullets. And one was because the guy cleared his weapon, pulled the trigger, bam! He didn't look in there before he pulled the trigger. And the other one, the guy, I don't know where the hell it was. He looked at ammunition in my pocket. I'm sure it was. Those are the only 2 rounds in Detroit 2. You never heard anything about Detroit 2. Thank God you didn't. That was part of the new training that was developed. I'm just talking to my son about this very thing you're looking at. You'll notice there are no regimental things or anything in Detroit police. There's no shiny belt buckles. There's a reason for all that. You know, and when they're out at night, they don't want that flashing stuff any more than lighting cigarettes. And they say, wow, and they all have white helmets, but they put black, I call it watch caps, that's what people call it, over their helmets so that it wouldn't shine at night. All the Detroit police officers, black or white, that I talked to, they were trying to do the job. I'm sure that not everybody in Detroit saw them that way. It's like, oh my times of good fortune to see them that way. And this was the case. So many people in the community, they wanted this to end. They owned the businesses in the community. And God, let's get this stop. This is killing us. So when you see race riot, you try, no. So, some buildings were particularly marked. This was, I think, a time to take a furniture company. Wherever you saw a sign, it was usually like this. It was a very deliberate activity on the part of someone. And it said that that the monkeys were coming. How did that happen? We couldn't stop everything. You know, I don't think Olympia Stadium exists anymore, does it?
No.
Go on for the new hockey facility right there.
Well, the second new one, yeah.
One of the major targets were paint places because psychologically the fire and smoke and the rolling. So people, I looked over toward Detroit, all I could see was smoke. That's because some people had brains enough there. Let's make them look really tough. And there's a little fire going there. That's just a tree that was brought to an early fall from by the building behind it. I don't know any specific stories about that. You can't see it, but you see there are 2 National Guard guys sitting in front door of the gun shop. Obviously, a gun shop would be a flying target. Everybody likes to have a gun, just even now in these civil service. People who don't even know how to use guns, they never fired a gun. No, without my gun. Yippee. A lot of the places were defending themselves on the fact that they were minorities. They were soul brothers. And it says on there that this whole capacity is owned by minorities because we're soul and we're open. And you can see that if this building is burned, look at the second floor. Who would be injured? A lot of soul brothers. They hurt. And that's trying to save the innocent wherever it was possible. Now there, it says on the door, black, don't burn. They did not burn the door. If people listen to the rules, that's what I like. I never thought it would get like that. But it sure could. As far as the rest of the building was concerned, it didn't make any difference. And again, I don't know what kind of store this was. Somebody at the time said, oh, that was right next to Presby's one side. I don't know what's on the other side. But they said it was specifically a Target. Now they said there's some of these places where you could buy things on time. And the time formula was $1 down, $1 a week for the rest of your life. And then after a while, this is not fair. And somebody knew some history with this drive-in too, that it wasn't very well received in the community. And then when they fit into these situations, you wonder if there's anybody in there in that rubbish that they'll find someday. I'm sure there would. So there's a lot of this kind of stuff. Whenever there's a problem, people gravitate to it. People who are hiding a lot of it. My son Ward, who a lot of you know, he started his police career in Texas, in the Houston Police Department. And then he said he'd go to the bulletin board, and then always say, we're looking for this guy would be able to draw maybe a photograph of a guy, you know. So go to the copy machine and put it on the clipboard. He said, we have some big incident, and there'd be maybe 30 cops there, and about 1 million people there. And he said, they're all looking at who is there? He said, I don't know, well, who's over there? Hey, you know this guy? And those in here who know Ward know that I'm trying to think of a better term than BS. A theater person he is. Yeah. Put his arm around him and say, hey, you see Bill? You know who that guy? Oh, yeah. Yes, sir, officer. That was so-and-so. And over there, you know who that guy? Oh, yes, sir. That was that. He said, you're going to be killed. Thanks. I try to help the city too, whenever I can. Maybe you can help me some more. And he said, well, come on over to my car. Sure, yes, sir. And he walked over there, his arm around the guy. He could pull out his clipboard. You know this guy? Oh, shit. Oh! Well, you have a seat right inside there. And this fellow officer said, Lord, how do you get so many of these people? We're looking for him. So, Lawrence brought her in, you know. You guys do. And I noticed they're talking about that in these civil disturbances that are going on today. All different people who come to the occasion. When there's an arson, they come out with the police and the fire department going, look, who's here? There's a lot of times the arson is there. And you'd see cars pulled over, you don't know how it got there. Usually it was somebody who drove it there who wasn't supposed to be there, and the Detroit police were not nice to them. Oh, look who's here. You came all the way from Kentucky, according to your license. Oh, yes, we want to help. You do? Well, that's nice. Is that why you brought all those rifles that are laying in your... Oh, well, you never know. You never know who might... That's right. You know, we want to pay you back for being here tonight. We're going to take you to a nice place to stay. Well, we'll take care of your car. Oh, my God, we'll take care of your gun. Get in. Boom. Ooh, that wasn't very nice. So, I mean, it would really turn the police off. The fact that they're trying to got enough damn problems without somebody coming in to make things worse. And that's just a universal difficulty in those kinds of things. Here's a kind of a unique one where the one house goes and the other one, you can see it through the upper window. It didn't quite get out of it. But it these guys would come in, they would be so tired from the stress And that's a terrazzo floor. They got air mattress they couldn't even blow up. They were so tired. They just lay down and be gone like that. And and you see, they didn't take the cartridge belt off. They just don't look at this. And just went into another world. And that's the kind of a problem that you have in this kind of situation. And that's St. Angle.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah.
Ooh, that
He's
was.
a good guy, and he was full time, and he wound up a full time warrant officer, and it was his brother that was Calvin Film as a whole, and a good friend of mine. And we always had fun with that slide right there. And he's got a cot, he's got an air mattress, and he said, and these patrols were going out. Everybody need anything when we're out. And he said, I'd like them all. He was gone to, he was in another city. He just said it and away they went. And he was a good sport.
He looks thinner when he's spread out. He looks thinner when he's laying down flat.
Yeah. Well, he and I were friends for a long, long time. We just lost him. Good guy. But here's what you can see. This is quite not flattering to the guard at all. See all those pock marks on that building? That's from 50 caliber. Lori, one time you at Rotary said, people don't know the power of 50 caliber machine gun. They don't. But that's, and if they're all over that building, that meant a lot of them went through the window. If they went through the window, a lot of them probably came out the ceiling. Lesson learned. Robert's discount house.
Individuals had a 50 caliber.
What's that?
I mean, people out in the city had a 50 caliber machine gun. I mean, who shot them?
I don't know. That I don't know.
Yeah.
The 50 caliber Browning, someone wrote Browning to develop 50 caliber, 30 caliber, umpteen movements and weapons. And it was against violent death, and he was probably responsible for more deaths than any other man. And all those weapons are still good today, they're still using them. Not necessarily, there's a lot of them for hunting and so on.
So that's something an individual carries?
No, that's military. I mean,
Yeah. I mean, well, a military individual, like,
shoots around about as big around as your thumb and half-inch, 7 inches long.
Here's a good example of the streetlight situation that makes good. See all those streetlights? Pum, 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 pum. They're all been shot out. And that's what the free press loves. Who shot those out? If they have an amplifier. Was it 22? No. It's a 30 caliber. But in the far military, it's trying to save lives. I like this slide. That's what I used to look like. And you see that we and they. Oh, keep a score on that way to right. No, it has nothing to do. Civil services. This was the start of a bridge coming back. When we had people, we put them off the street. We didn't want them wandering anywhere. And we had different functions of park our guys when we started meetings at night and so on. They occupy their time, and that's a bridge score up there. And you can't believe the number of rumors you hear in Texas. You know, Martians are coming in. So I just thought Martians coming in on a rocket. Oh, they're all right, yeah. And so then they come to me, because I'm the company commander, put the door in, and I don't know, Billy. And I said, look, I said, at $1,600, go to this room, and I will listen to everything you have to say. And at $1,600, I will tell you what I heard from higher headquarters. How's that sound? Okay. So the first day, I think we had like maybe 15 people that were just coming off shift and going on. And then the word got out to the high school that you could come down there and get information. The next day, I think we had 300 out in Kalamazoo from all over. The word got out because people just thirst for information. They thirst. And so that was, people said, what did you do during the civil service? Well, try to stay out of trouble.
What was your rank then?
What?
What was your rank? Yeah. Your rank.
Captain.
You. Rank.
Oh, rank.
Uh-huh.
General. I was a captain there.
Good.
Yeah. I was a captain there. And these guys they're getting their patrol orders. And the guy that's sitting there, the sergeant at the city, I just got a letter from him about a month ago, and he found his notes on the, and he said, hey, if you ever have to go, he said, thank you for trying to keep us informed. It was greatly appreciated by all the people in the unit. If you ever have to go again, as much as I hated it, I'll go with you. Little humor. And you'll see people drinking no alcohol. Not because they weren't allowed, but which is true, they weren't allowed. But if you don't want to be drinking in these kinds of situations, you don't want yourself to be impaired. Well, one of the miscalculations, or the correct calculation, that Madonna up there, and somebody from Detroit would know what that is. Somebody came up and sprayed it into her face and her hand black. Oh, this is a great injustice. Then the word got, it's the way it should be. They decided at the end to leave it. A lot of card games going with cops and guard guys there. A lot of ball games. You start where you want to pull people off the street, but you want to be able to get them real quick if you have to. Because the ball games don't keep you inside, you begin. On Detroit 2, the Kalamazoo unit never left the armory. That wasn't Detroit. They didn't care because the police said, we don't know what's going to happen in Kalamazoo. But they weren't out walking around, did they? They were inside the armory. We developed these forms. The Guard belongs. The Guard does. The Guard is the people's army. That was what why it's in the Constitution. It was around here long before the Army was around here. The British actually started it. The British used it. And they did it in all their areas that they were working. And now there's been so much change. It used to be, oh yeah, they're just militia guys. Let it go there. Not anymore. Ever since Vietnam. All reserve components have to have the equal training, equal equipment, everything that the active has. And as Secretary McNamara said, we don't have the time to do, oh yeah, they're going to set up a man, we'll hold them up with graphies, we'll train them all, and then they go sports there. He said, no time. When they come, because there you go, and they are. Mentioned by the general. I'm the same qualifications as the general in the army. I had to go to the same damn school as he did and everything. Because everybody has to be together. And I was treated that way. When I was doing exercises in the German army or something, there wasn't any question that I was qualified to be there. It was me qualified. That was just one of the things that came off. And that's the same with all reserve components. Army Reserve, Air Force Reserve, Navy Reserve. People don't realize it. We had the Challenger blew up and exploded. Who was it found the bodies of the missing astronaut? The Navy. Navy Reserve. Because that's their job. The diving part, that's their assignment. You got to be ready to do that all the time. And they did. So there is the end of this presentation. Is there any questions? You may say, oh, half a way said might have been malarkey. I don't know. I never knew malarkey. But I appreciate you toughing it out here in the heat weather. I appreciate the historical society setting up. perfect environment. I thought this morning I was at Yogi, God, oh, and they didn't get shades in that building. I drove by and I saw a couple of shades and I thought, I want to take that air, it's like air conditioning. It's really, really a nice place, and the versatility of these chairs has been fantastic.
We're paying for it every month.
That's all right. Yeah, it's only money.
It's only money.
But this building was designed for this function. It was designed to be open so that it could be for all kinds of groups, and it just works out perfect.
We had that discussion amongst our board members. So we want to get more people out to the historic village, and the way to do it is have these speaker series here at the township hall. And it's got air conditioning, got climate control, so it can be comfortable. Good spot.
Well, may I pipe in a different perspective? Please. 4 minutes? Is that what I've got? We were living in Detroit at the time. We lived up on the northwest side, which was maybe 6 miles from where the facility was.
Thank you, Larry.
Thank you.
And so we had a different perspective on it. We lived about 6 houses from the corner of Puritan, which was, it's like 5.5 miles. And we were actually on vacation here in Kentucky when we heard about the riots. We got as far as from Kentucky to Toledo, and the city was barricaded. You couldn't, nobody out, nobody in. So we got it then to Allen Park, bought groceries, and then wormed our way back into the northwest side and finally got back to the house. And had been watching all of this on television, had been watching, or listening on the radio, and so it was all kind of distance learning at that point. But I remember sitting on the porch, and from the porch we could see Puritan, and we could see the personal carriers going by with the guys sitting in the back with their guns and all their army stuff on, and felt protected, felt safe. Didn't know everything that was going on down there other than the whole city was blowing up. And it was a very white, very primarily Catholic, Irish, a little Polish, and a few Jews thrown in there. It was a very idyllic growing up. We knew blacks from my dad's company, but we didn't realize that they were different. They were just people we knew. And we knew they had families and houses and all these things. Had no idea that they were different than we were in everything that went along with it until years and years and years later when we read all about it. But just so you know, to be a little comforted by the people who were there, we get the free press in the morning, we get the news at night. Free press was the liberal paper, the news was the conservative paper, and we didn't believe either one of them. So whatever was in the paper, we went, well, they can't, if they're shooting out the streetlights, they're doing it for a good reason. So we were on your side without even knowing it. And I was just reading the other day about Black Bottom, which is downtown, it was a neighborhood downtown, about a half a mile from Grand Circus Park, right downtown. Beautiful area, black owned, black single housing, black businesses, black banks. It was a perfect black owned, black run neighborhood. Functional, successful, but in the late 50s and the early 60s, urban renewal came down. And this was another element, the one that you didn't touch on, but it was one that was tied into all the rest of this, is that they wanted to upscale and unify neighborhoods downtown. So urban renewal was coming in, and they just wiped out this entirely successful ethnic area to put in, but they made up the difference. We've got some really cool high rises. Harriet Tubman and the Brewster Project, we're putting these in, they'll be really good for you. So, you know, you go back, prospectively, and look at that, and you say, oh, no wonder these people had it wrong. Is it not? It's not.
Great.
But it was terrifying. The whole city was just going to go up in flames because you had information. We had less than you did, other than sitting there hoping those guys all had bullets in their guns that were going by. But we did feel very safe seeing the troops come through. A little spooky in your own neighborhood, but it was a very interesting time to live. And thank you. You guys done good.
Are there any other questions, Lawrence? Thank you there, Mr.